Welcome to week 4 Tuesday night Heffron podcast. The Detour Custom Apparel has once again delivered a huge event Tuesday night. Massive numbers, massive finishing fields, a result we've possibly never seen before. And to break all of that down, we have our resident statistician, Vaughan McVilly. Welcome, Vaughan.
Yow!
And the man who's spotting the winners with his pure eyeballs, Mr. John Sunde. Welcome, John.
G'day, Alexi, and hi to you too, Vaughan.
G'day, mate.
And of course, I am tonight's host, Alexis Kaless, just one very average cyclist. And while I was an average cyclist, Liam Goltman came out of the blocks last night, put his marker down and said, remember this date because in a few years, he could be doing that quite regularly in A grade. Vaughan, John, why don't you tell all of our viewers how it play out on Tuesday in those last couple of laps?
No, Vaughan.
All right, mate. Well, I'll say great little ride by Liam. I've got some numbers on him and he's a very, very good hider. I just had a look at his average watts per lap. I get all my data from Strava. We've had a few people saying it's not super accurate, but hey, if I'm comparing it week on week, it's always the same data. So, but just looking at Liam's numbers, the first sort of probably 8 or 9 laps of the race, he was averaging between 230 and 240 watts, and the last 3 laps went like this: 326, 380, and 378. Now he did have to obviously get away and chase down Leif, who was unbelievably impressive. But yeah, it was a fantastic win. I don't know whether the B graders will let him hide as much as he probably did on this lap, because he just showed a very clean set of heels and rode straight off the front of that bunch when they were full gas.
That's right. So I think I should probably give it a very general overall. So in the last week's podcast, for we know everyone was watching, we said C grade probably have to start on Monday night in order to give themselves a chance. And yet, John, you were very gracious with their handicap on Tuesday night. You certainly gave them a pretty good shot. Were you thinking at that stage they'd be able to hold them off?
I thought they were getting a better chance. So they started. This is C grade. They started 20, not even 10 or 15 seconds behind B grade. So it was almost a whole lap in front of them. But the real favour in the handicapping was actually to A grade. They had a 10-second better start than the week before, and they still didn't get or catch until that last lap.
Yeah, it was interesting because C grade rolled out the fastest of their 4 weeks. So they've obviously been listening. They've been thinking, because I was on the sideline filming B grade roll out and then thought I'd better clip in and join C grade. They've rolled out. Took me a lap to get on. And they were simply all just fanging along. And then normally the last couple of weeks, A grade have done their first pass of C grade with 11, 12 to go.
Yeah.
This week, it didn't happen until the 10th lap. And I think almost there was this belief then amongst C grade, hey, we could actually win this thing. And so they kept rolling really strong the entire race. Didn't lose anyone, but certainly they had huge numbers rolling along. B grade have then, though, with their great work, have made the catch, I think, with 3 laps to go. Would that be right?
Yeah, that was about 4 and 3 to go.
That's right, 4-3 to go. So then you got down to 2 laps to go. A grade still haven't catch, but they're within stalking distance. They were just sitting off there 4 or 5 seconds back. Gets to 2 to go. A and B are together. B and C are together. And then Leif Ingwerson.
I can pick this up. So with 2 to go, Leif, brand new to Tuesday night racing. Junior under 16 or something, and he decides to have a go on his own. Like, hey, Leif, if you want to get noticed and go up a grade, that's how you get noticed and go up a grade. And he just takes off, and I'm thinking very similar or not dissimilar to what Cooper had done the previous week on the last lap, but Cooper wasn't successful, got caught and spat out. But Leif's given it a go. What happens on the Bell lap, 1 lap later? He's still in front, but in hot pursuit. By a good
distance.
Yeah, by a good distance, but in hot pursuit, Liam Goltman and Toby Aubrey Poiner have taken off. And I thought, well, that's brave, because you're not going to catch him, and you're going to get swamped from all the riders behind. But they never did get swamped.
That was the weird thing, wasn't it? Those two have gone off in hot pursuit, and you thought, look, it's a brave move. You're giving yourself the best opportunity, but all three of you are going to get caught either by the massive B and C or when A grade come through and smoke you. And yet when they hit the front straight, what do you see? Liam Goltman has gone, he's gone solo.
There's a few little let me jump in there for a second. There's a few little things that happen different. So for C grade A, they did a fantastic job. Just to give you an idea, they averaged between 3-minute 12, 3-minute 14 seconds last week. This week, 3:02s. So considerably faster. But interestingly enough, what did happen is when B grade caught them, they caught them on the main straight coming up the straight, and C grade was across the entire road. I remember commentating going, oh my God, this is a dog's breakfast, because there were C graders on the far right, on the far left. And I remember seeing, it might have been Big Tommy Hyde trying to weave his way through, and they sort of got to the front, and after talking to some of the B graders, they were then looking around to see where all the other B graders were. There was a little bit of a lull, and Leif just went, well, bugger this, I'm off. And so that's where he hit it. And when speaking to Leif, he said exactly that. He said, we sort of got round B grade quarters. He said, but then there was a little dip in acceleration, and they de-accelerated a little bit, and he took off. And, mate, that was a super duper impressive ride.
But I suppose super duper more was Liam Goltman and was it Tobias?
Toby.
Yeah, they've then bridged, and then I know they caught Liam Goltman, sat on for a moment or two, and then just went, I'll take this victory. Roland, here we go. And he wins with fresh air.
He did. Yeah. So big shout out to Liam. I just had to look up when he first started racing on a Tuesday night, and this is his 4th season.
Sorry,
not sure how old Liam is.
Did you say his 12th season?
No, his 4th.
Oh, that makes more sense. He's literally 12 years old.
So he also does a lot of track work, and he's come up through the ranks. He spent 2 years in C grade, and I think he started riding B grade. And like you said, Vaughan, he knows how to sit a wheel, and he knows how to handle the Heffron circuit really well. And I thought how he executed that was brilliant. To get across, recover, and then just time a sprint. I thought he was always going to have too much power and speed for young Leif. I was surprised by Toby, who has been quite noticeable on the front in the last few weeks in B grade, that he wasn't there in the mix on that last lap. So he must have used up a lot of energy and a lot of his picking.
That's it. With a lap to go, he's sitting in second or third place. By the end of the race, he was 34th B grader over the line.
Yeah, he was a long way down.
So look, that's talk about putting all your chips on the table.
That's right.
He just went, I'm all in on this attack, and then realised with a couple of hundred to go, I'm out.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about whether they hit or didn't do enough work. You hear a fair bit of chatter saying, he didn't do any pulled any turns, and all I can say to that is a win's a win. And if you get up and you win the bike race, it's like Chapo, especially for a young guy like Liam. Yeah. He's done that extremely well. That's a great top three.
I'll say one thing about Liam, and all you other young riders should note, he knows how to race, and he races to race. It's not a training ride. If you want to do efforts, go and do efforts. But if you're going to come to Heffron on a Tuesday night, put your race brain on, put your race head on, make sure you bring your race legs and your race lungs and race.
Absolutely. Which also, I would give credit then to Leif. I'm just going to call him Leif. Big Leif, the Maple Leaf. He was doing plenty of work in C grade as well. Like, that's what I liked. He wasn't like, look, I'm probably feeling pretty comfy here. I'll now sit in and try and go for the. He worked the whole time. So the spirit of racing.
He did.
The Maple Leaf, he did very well. And he was a deserved second place. He was probably unfortunate to not get first. And then along came the Spider. And then A and B have come along. Scotty Law has done
this is interesting.
Done the big celebration for third place. What's going on there?
Well, I think I don't think A grade, they wouldn't have known that there were two riders up the road. So Scotty's hit the front. He's managed to weave his way through the B grade traffic down the straight. And if you look at the finish line video, I think he's sort of sat up with about, I don't know, about 20, 30 meters to go for the victory salute. Nearly got rolled by literally the width of a tyre by Pat Curtin from B grade. And I think I honestly thought he had won the race overall, because they wouldn't have known there were two riders up the road.
I just thought he was really happy to be finishing in third place. Because he doesn't get to win a lot of bike races, Scott. He's like, finally, after all these years, finally I get to cross the line on a podium. But Pat Curtin was finishing that fast that you'll see the photos from Richard Scrive that on the line, Scott Law wins by probably a tyre width, if that.
Yeah, not even.
And 10 centimeters after the line, Pat Curtin's in third place.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I didn't realize Pat Curtin had such a fast sprint on him.
Yeah, he's come on since the years. Pat's like 2 or 3 years into, well, maybe 3 or 4 years into Tuesday night racing. And the more you race, the better you get. Shout out to fifth place, which was Robbie Allen, fifth overall. So for the first time that I can remember, I'd have to go back through the archives. I just can't remember 3 grades taking the first 3 places. So we had a B grader, a C grader, and an A grader.
Yeah, unreal.
Yeah, incredible. What an amazing result.
Absolutely.
And someone actually complimented the handicap, so I'll take the kudos for that. Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
And just a little bit more on that sprint up the main straight. You actually saw Robbie Allen, Andrew Jacobs from Centennial Park, and those boys, they started their sprint pretty early because I think they saw those 2 boys ahead. You saw it open up right across the straight and the sprint was opened. But Pat Curtin, I reckon he came from about 10th place. He was finishing so fast. And then, you just saw that creamy coloured jersey of Scotty Law just weaving through.
I don't know how he got through.
Neither do I. It was amazing.
There was quite a gap between Scotty as first, third overall, first A grader, back to Millsy, who was the second A grader.
Intense, yep.
Timeless. And then Gwen Evelyn was third in A grade.
Yep. Yeah. So gone are the days of Gwen Watch.
Yeah.
The only fault that I could attribute to Gwen's performance on Tuesday night was his selection of pubs for our post-race beer and burger. Gwen, I'm sorry, mate, you got to do better than that.
Let's just quickly talk.
Sorry, I'll just finish that one there.
Yeah.
So, Johnny, is Willie Heff? He finished fourth overall in A grade. Is he able to join you at the pub yet, John, or is he?
No. Willie's 2 years past his 18th birthday.
Oh, okay.
Willie's birthday's in December. I know that because
Yeah.
we took him to the pub after a race one night and started feeding him cocktails, and then he rode home through Centennial Park and ran into a tree.
That's classic.
And then the other man who was back in A grade, return of the number 1 man, the point score champion, Jack Bennett.
Yep.
That must have lit up the pub afterwards, John. What was Jack saying post race?
Well, I knew that Jack was going to turn up when I got down there early on Tuesday night, and Grant Bennett turned up. Grant only turns up when he knows Jack's going to race. I think it must have been, there was a quiet visit in Sydney this week from Caleb Ewan in Europe. And maybe Jack got motivated by, Caleb's pep talk. Don't know, but it was good to see Jack back on the start line because he's missed the first few races. I thought he did really well. Yeah. First race back on a Tuesday night, about 4th or 5th, I think, overall, and in B grade and A grade, 6th overall. They couldn't get through the traffic. You actually see in Ollie Penny's video, finish line video on board, that Jack is literally backpedaling coming down the straight because he couldn't get through the traffic.
Yeah. I actually spoke to Jack before the race and asked how the legs were. He said he's had 4 rides in a row, but before they had 4 weeks off, he had gastro. And then he had to do a lot of flying or something, he said, so he hadn't ridden much and wasn't looking forward to it. But that said, with 3 laps to go, I sort of gave him the little nod to see how he was going, and he took his hands off and just gave him the thumbs up. So welcome back, Jack, is all I can say.
Yeah. Hey, Vaughan, you know that story you just brought out from Jack about, I've had gastro, I've been off the bike and I've done this. You know how many times I've heard that story in the last 40 years? A lot.
Every year. Just quickly on B grade, I was kind enough to have a good chat with Tom Hyde. I actually picked Tom Hyde for the win. I thought Centennial were going to keep handing you around the top step. He's been riding very, very well. I think he ended up where did he end up 12th overall.
He was about 8th. I don't know what he got overall.
Yeah,
but he was up there.
Yeah, he was. But he was pulling massive turns, and he showed me his data. And so, like, to give you an example, the average speed of B grade week on week wasn't that too different, 44.4 compared to 44.2 week on week.
They can't go any slower.
No, exactly.
Because if they do, they're getting caught.
Yeah.
Like there is
but he was
seconds here.
He was averaging 247 watts last week, but he averaged 278 watts by my counts this week. But he was pulling massive turns, and he said that they were going all in again for Benny Gladstonebury, the best hairdo in Sydney. But unfortunately, Benny couldn't quite weave his way through C grade. He got hung up when B caught C, and that which pushed him a long way to the back.
A long way, 23rd.
Yeah.
In B.
And then just lastly, from the sort of, I guess, the numbers point of view, that those lap times for the last 4 laps leading into the finish. So with 4 laps to go, we said that A grade had B grade in their sight, and they might have waited 1 lap and just let them go. And so they did a 241, while B grade just did a 248, a 249, a 249, and a 247. That was their last laps. But A grade took the foot off the gas. With 3 laps to go, they did a 246, which was only 3 seconds different. And the next lap, they did a 245, which was only 5 seconds different. And then they did
be 10 seconds, doesn't
it? Yeah. Well, and then the last lap, they did a 230, which was, 16 seconds faster.
Wow.
So there was 3 laps where they were only improving about 3 or 4 seconds a lap, and then they turned the gas on, and obviously it was a little bit too late.
It was too late. And also because of the conditions, it wasn't super windy. And we can tell that when we look at the results. We only lost 1 rider from A grade. In fact, that was for a mechanical to Josh Evans. We only lost 1 rider out of B grade. They finished with an almost complete complement of 35 riders. Lost a few out of C's. That just goes to show you how many riders are still. We had 80 riders still on the circuit on the last lap, of which 20 of them were A grade. So A grade still had to get through 60 riders on the last lap, and it's almost
that's got to slow you down. Like, you're not going to be able to just weave through that because it's so wide at that stage as well. Like, there's no, even if you're cutting the corner, you're not going to make it up.
Absolutely. It's also worth noting, so just jump in there 1 second, that we had quite a few A graders who did dirty warning. Chris Miller, Ollie, who else was Will Clark. They'd all done dirty warning on Saturday, 245 Ks, and went horribly deep. So there was definitely some tired legs there too that probably weren't pulling as big a turns as what they normally do. But chapo for them to turn up on Tuesday and still race hard.
Yeah, and the other rider who did dirty warning at the weekend and couldn't race on Tuesday night but was there limping on the sideline was Rhino Keith, who unfortunately ended up with a small fracture in his wrist and a bung knee. So he was there all wrapped up with a cast on. But I'll tell you what, it didn't stop him riding on Wednesday morning and just clocking up a sly 35K in Centennial Park. So, amazing recovery.
Well, and just to show the C graders can't be outdone, we also had Rupert McGuinness racing the dirty warning, doing the full thing.
Rupert, of course.
That's it. Everyone's covering off. It's not just the big hitters in A grade getting around.
No, that's right.
I was Rip Star Swanee down at the race down at Dirty Warning. It's a fantastic event, unbelievable. But he did so well. Like, he was expecting to come in at around that 11-hour, 12-hour groups that were coming in, but I think he just finished just over 10 hours. So he was 2 hours faster than he thought he was going to be. He took the beer out of my hand at the finish line and promptly sculled it, and chapo to him for doing that.
And I saw a nice, just talking about the dirty warning, I saw a nice photo of Roop and Phil Anderson together down at the dirty warning. How did he go?
Well, Phil's ridiculous, mate. He was pissed off with himself because he rode 9:04 and he wanted to break 9 hours. But he came in and he was smiling. His whole group was buckled and falling over on the ground. But here's a little side story for you that I only learnt through Roop and Phil while we were sitting there having a beer and chatting afterwards. So after a Milan San Remo back in, I think it must have been the 80s, I guess, Roop said, they were sort of mates. They'd see them obviously at bike races and stuff. And he said to Phil, oh, look, I'm going to go down the south of France and find myself a house for the rest of the year and into next year. And Phil just casually said, hey, find me one too. And so while Roop was looking for houses, he found two next door to each other. So they ended up being next door neighbours for 4 years. So, which I didn't know. So there was some really good storytelling after the race.
Well, that was without getting distracted too much from Tuesday Night Heffron. But I first met Rupert. That was at least 35 years ago, and he wanted to go to Belgium, and because he wanted to write articles about. Originally he wanted to write a book about Phil, and I was already doing some work with Phil back in the early '80s, and that's how Roop ended up meeting Phil. And Roop then went to Europe and started work with Winning Magazine, and that's how he got his first gig. And of course, the rest is history. Because he spent the next 30 years, commentating and writing about pro cycling in Europe.
Everything starts and finishes at Tuesday Night Heffron.
Hey, it does. And to close a chapter of Tuesday Night and a star Euro cycling career, Cav won't be coming back to, unfortunately, won't be coming back.
Well, he may come back to Heffron, though.
Well, that's the
thing. He's now going to holiday down here. And you'll think, finally, I can race Heffron without the pressure of the World Tour being on top of it.
And finally, I can maybe come back to Heffron and beat Spurge.
Yes.
And probably Brad Mills as well. I think Millsy, he would have been rolling around there. And once again, second.
If I remember all the times that Cav did race at Heffron, the way the story goes that I keep hearing, the only guy to ever beat him was Liam Kelly.
Oh, there you go. Jeez.
Well, let's look back at some of the younger generations.
That's a section of the show that's going to get played 10 times on Liam's Facebook over the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's right. And then, so as we look back at some other young riders, I thought Cooper Finkenbeiner, Tom Boonen. He was
Cooper had another great ride.
Another great ride. And ahead of the ageless Greg Rule, Kira Will, 10th in B grade. So talk about turning up with some fresh legs. Don't do the track.
I just want to add.
Let's face it, you're not racing track in New South Wales any longer.
Yeah, I just want to add. There were two entries on Tuesday night that unfortunately had to do a no-show, and that were it was Dylan and Kurt Ether. They were meant to race on Tuesday night. They didn't. Of course, Kurt's fresh from the Tour of Southland, but I hope Kurt's doing okay, because I heard the reason they couldn't make it on Tuesday night. He had a fall at track training on Tuesday.
I thought you were going to use the gastro, the usual excuse.
No. That's when I haven't been racing and I come back. Oh, I've been sick and.
Certainly, absolutely. I hope they're all well and hopefully back on. I mean, those guys bounce back pretty well, so I hope they're seeing them back. If I look at some of the other B grade finishes, who else really stood out for me on Tuesday night? I thought, John, you were.
I was going to say Grant Holbert has been a quiet achiever.
Yes,
midfield. He's never far from the front, and he's there. It's good to see Camilo Garcia back second week.
Mustachios, Connor Vergerbergen.
Connor, he was strong again.
Connor's second race. Yeah, he's loving it. He's loving it.
He probably just needs to learn that, he can race however he likes. But he went off the front 3 times throughout that race. And it's probably the type of race where you don't go off the front, Connor. Save those bickies for later in the race and turn your gas on a little bit like a Leif or a Liam did in the last few laps rather than, lap 3 or 4.
And that's where I will say in C grade, my big shout out, Bongsack.
Oh, Bongsack. Unbelievable. On the podium, Bongsack.
On the podium, third. But also, it was one of those things where, he's quite an achiever. He finishes up high, but often you don't see him a lot during the race. He's the master. But this week, I actually said to him mid-race, get up there and do some work. And he did. And he kept rolling turns. And at the end of the race, to his credit, he came up to me and said, that was actually so much fun. And he suddenly realized when you're actually racing the race, it is so, and I think that's why so many C graders were probably the same. all of a sudden they're all rolling and they go, how good's this racing? So I thought Fonsack, he raced really well. Once again, obviously, Luca and Harvey, they get strength to strength every week. They're getting stronger, finishing second and fourth. Michael Stanton must just be wishing he was 10 years younger, I think, because those young guys just seem to keep pushing you over the top. The other ones, I thought, Ruben Shepherd and Luke Cromer, I thought rode very well for Randwick.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add, there's another name there on the C grade finish list that's been a long time since you've seen that name at Heffron. That's Joel Sherb. Joel, he turned up last week. He was an under 17, I think under 19 junior national rep. I guess that was at least 10 or 15 years ago. He's been running ever since, and he is loving it. So it was really good to see Joel, fitting back into Tuesday night racing. He said to me after, it was the biggest buzz. There's just no buzz like Tuesday night racing.
And the person who will support that will be Toner Ferguson. Because I think Big Tones...
Did you see his expression when he crossed the finish line?
Oh, that's good. Like, that's the thing. It's going to bring... Everyone's now going to go and watch the finish line, but he was happy finishing... What did he finish? 19th in C grade, so that was probably about 70th overall or something, but hands went up.
He came across that line waving his hand as though he was Scotty Law winning the race, but he actually didn't win the race.
No, but he rode really well. I mean, I don't think 23 finishes, 34 starters. You probably had 34 people working in that race. So I think everyone basically got a turn, but the pace stayed high. They all did really well. And then, of course, you've got, I know one of the riders, there's two stories into one, John Ward, when Leif Ingwerson went off the front, John went, I'm going to go with him. And they went, yeah, no, I can't. And just went, I'll let him go. I'll let him have that glory. I'll wait. But then behind him, we had Nicole Wilson.
Yes.
She rode very well, strong throughout. And Izzy Newell was there, didn't finish, but rolled turns, learned a lot, getting better.
And there is a name on the list, on the finishers list, and he hasn't been on the finishing list this year. And a shout out to East Rider, Chris Green. So I reckon Chris Green went home feeling pretty happy. First ride in 4 weeks that he's actually crossed the finish line after 14 laps.
Wow.
And also a big welcome back to Gino. Gino's first race back on Tuesday night.
Gino, I was actually surprised. I thought I almost might see Gino's name on the finishing line. He must have he obviously pulled
set
out
up one to go when Big Ray caught. He
Smart
just
move.
thought, I'll take it easy. I've got a lot of years left in my career. There's no rush.
Mate, that is one for recovery. Yeah, to be right back there was fantastic. And so hopefully we've listed a lot of riders.
A bit of inter-club, I was going to say a little bit of inter-club competition as well. I like always sort of going through and seeing how the clubs are going. Northern Sydney with 2 in the top 10, John, with Daniel Newman in 9th and, of course, Paddy Curtin in 4th. No other club had 2 in the top 10. So,
interesting.
So that's interesting.
And Will Batchen
just outside of that, obviously.
10th. With Will
best ride in his I think it was his 3rd week or maybe 2nd week, but he was very active in A grade. It was good to see he finished, but that must bring us to the biggest award in cycling globally.
Mate, forget about the Trident or a rock. I mean, the Char Grill Charlies Rider of the Week.
There's the voucher right there.
That's the same. I think was it Matthew Heyman? He's got his bike from Roubaix on the back wall, and you've got your Chargirl Charlie's rider that you've awarded yourself similarly up on the wall there as a monument.
Mate, do you know how much willpower it takes me to not take it off the wall and go down to Char Grilled Chicken and get a chicken burger?
There are a lot of deserving riders this week. I mean, that finish, when the 3 of them went off the front there, Leif, to do so well, to hang on, to have the energy. Liam Goltman, smart move, hit catches, bang. The rest of B grade going, what do we do? They paid the price. Scotty Law, very happy with 3rd place. But John, who are you thinking? Is there someone who was hiding in the bunch that you thought, that was a fantastic ride?
For
Josh
me,
Ludlam. Well, good.
It was for me. It was neck and neck between Leif and Liam, because what they both did was ballsy. And if there's one thing that Heffron, I think, has been renowned for over years, is people having a go, and they both had a go. But I'm going to give it to Liam because of his race nous and the way he timed it to perfection. I mean, that was a bold move at the beginning of the straight with 1.5 to go, to chase down Leif and then catch Leif and outsprint him and put daylight into the entire field. So my vote goes to Liam.
Vaughan?
Yeah, I'd agree. It was a coin toss for me. I also thought Leif's first ride, I think, right? Was that his
first
ever?
Tuesday night.
Like he pulled some massive turns. And so for me, that got him across the line. So he pulled massive turns the entire race and still went off the front and did it. But I also want to make a huge mention because Kira Will ended up top 10 in the B grade, right? And which meant she had to get through that melee of absolute craziness with a whole heap of A graders coming down. And there was only, I think, one A grader in front of her, which was Brad Mills. So I just wanted to give a massive shout out to Kira as well, because I think that was a great ride. So, but Leif for me, and so it's over to you to make the decision, Alexi.
That's a tough one, is it? Because look, Maple Leaf, he rode very well. Didn't get the win, but gee, he was out there a long time, wasn't he? Sure. I also really appreciated how he had worked so long, and then he went to live and die by the sword. It was a smart move as well. Like, he didn't do it unnecessarily. Like, it wasn't like he was messing around C Grader and thought, I'm just going to rip everyone's legs off. He waited for the catch, waited for that dull moment, off he went. Whereas Liam Goltman, again, he timed it well, realised there was the threat, realised that gap wasn't getting any smaller. So he joined up with Tobias there, timed it well, got the big photo victory that can now go on the wall, thanks to Rich Scriven there. Who do I don't know. It's a tough one. Make
a decision, Alexi.
I will go. Do I go? I'm going to go Leif as well, actually. I'm going to split it. Liam Goltman gets the glory of having the finishing line photo up there, of knowing he got first. Okay. Yeah. But I think the ride, and also, I mean, it's a ride probably like Lucas Stevenson's from a couple of years back. Remember when he won
the Spurge race?
Exactly. Yep. But I think Leif there, he also to hang on for second.
Yes.
Like, he didn't blow up like Tobias. He actually got caught and then, beaten. But so I'm going to say, Leif, you are our Chargirl Charlie's Rider of the Week.
Well done.
So, and with
well done, Leif.
We will move to the last lap, the glorious last lap. And I suppose with the start of the last lap, you should say, was that his last ride in C grade, or does he stay there, John?
Given some thought to that, I'm 70% weighing up. I think he's strong enough, eager enough, and proved he can do it racing at the start in A grade.
Okay, so you'd say, but if he wanted to stay in C grade, you'd be happy for him to stay there for another couple of weeks?
Yeah, we'll have a chat and work it out. But he obviously can't ride off the front again because he's done that once already. And but he's definitely strong enough. Clearly has a little bit more race skill to work on at Heffron. So maybe that could be part of the reason why he might spend another week or so in C grade.
Vaughan, any last lap thoughts for yourself?
Last lap thoughts. I think I'm going to be interested to see what the Centennial boys do next week. Whether they change their tactic and go back to maybe not pulling as hard as they did, because they did a shed load of work last week. And then the other thing that's a bit of an inside scoop, or maybe not necessarily a scoop, there's going to be a few extra girls, I think, turning up next week. I know that Gina Riccardo is coming down for some Tuesday night Heffron action. And there may be another current professional rider thinking about coming up and putting a few laps on. So Kira and Nicole, you may have a few extra girls in there to compete against.
Fantastic. Always like to see it.
Always good to see.
bunch of entries, of course, will be open. Get them in. Don't wait
open now
for Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon or turning up at the race, because as you can see now,
turn up the race.
It's huge
please.
fields now. You're actually running the risk of actually getting that. Sorry, it's just the fields are too big.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And
get
so
your entry in.
Special note to Edwin Brits, you have 7 days, Edwin, well, 6 days. Get your entry in on Buncher.
So to just very quickly recap, first place for the podium on Tuesday night was Liam Goltman. Second place was Maple Leaf Ingwerson. Third place, Scott Law. First female over the line was Kira Wheels, followed by Nicole O. So a bit of a turning of the tables there. 3 weeks in a row, a B grade have got the goods over A. Will we see a return of the A grade glory? Look, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's just be whether Brad Mills wants to do it all himself, or will he get the help of Willie Heffron and the Cache boys, or will we see the resurgence of ZCC?
Yeah, possibly. If you want to find out, there's only one place to be, and that's Heffron Park.
Tuesday night.
See you next Tuesday.
We'll see you all next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday. Yow.